Hello and welcome to MindShifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Thursday, April 1st, 2021. No joke. That's actually the day. That's actually the year. And this is the 91st day of the year. And as always, we're grateful to everyone who chooses to join us, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered in my almost 47 years of doing therapy. These tools are gratefully available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the red and white bullseye or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. The book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And the entire book is available on the website to download and read for free. You can also go to Amazon and search for it. Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And you can probably get a used copy for a song. And those that can't sing, you could get it for a little bit of money instead of the full price. It is not in print at this time, and it's been rumored that Dr. Rice is rewriting it. But that chapter of that book provides a narrative description of the primary tool in this work, and that tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And that's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 16 years to improve the quality of my life and move any negative emotional state that I experience into part of the infallible guidance system that we've each been given. So we encourage people to read that chapter of that book. You can also click on a PDF file and download it and get a completely free access to the worksheet process itself. Print it off and use it as often as you'd like. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And once you do that, you'll get to download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet process, an abbreviated version of that process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. You can also download a whole host of audio files right from that web page of shows just like this one where people have called in and been stepped through the worksheet process or asked clarifying questions about that process and how something so simple and direct, contained in one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, can be so powerfully effective. So we encourage people to do that soon and often because more often than not, it brings up questions and comments. And we would love to hear those questions and comments. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And if you call that number and press 1, it will put a little question mark by your phone number, and I can launch it by your area code, and we can have a conversation. We like it when people do that. It makes it far easier for us to live into our intention. And our intention with this work is to be of service. We've also made the commitment to work through the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year, and we're on the 91st day of the year. And the lesson today is miracles are seen in light. Commentary reads, it is important to remember that miracles and vision necessarily go together. So what they're referring to here is true vision, being able to see what's actually there, not creating images in our mind. But miracles and vision necessarily go together. This needs repeating, and frequent repeating. It is a central idea in your new thought system. And the perception which that thought system produces. The miracle is always there. Its presence is not caused by your vision. Its absence is not the result of your failure to see. It is only your awareness of miracles that is affected. you will see them in the light. You will not see them in the darkness. In the light of your true perception and your true awareness, your ability, your willingness to be aware, you will see miracles. They're there, they're always there, they're never not there. In the darkness that comes from your turning the light of your awareness away from the truth of what is, you will not see miracles. So, the darkness is not a thing other than your lack of willingness to be fully present and to see without distortion the truth of what is, to turn the light of your awareness towards actuality is what provides light. To turn the light of your awareness away from what's actually there is what creates your illusion of darkness. To you, then, light is crucial. While you remain in darkness, in other words, refusing to see the miracles right in front of us, miracles remain unseen. Thus, you are convinced it's not there. So, this is a very long commentary. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I've read it earlier. There's a section of it where it says, you're not a body. And if you're not a body, what are you? You need to be aware of what Holy Spirit uses to replace the image of a body in your mind. You need to feel something to put your faith in as you lift it from the body. You need a real experience of something else, something more solid and more secure, more worthy of your faith, and really there. So if you're not a body, what are you? If you ask this honestly, and then devote several minutes to allowing your mistaken thoughts about your attributes to be corrected, their opposites will take the place of your mistaken thoughts. So, using this list of statements and using Dr. Michael Rice's talk about regulatory speech, I'm going to read, I am strong. I am all-powerful. I am unlimited. I am certain. I am a reality. I see in light. So the second phase of the exercise period, try to experience these truths about yourself. And then relax. And remind yourself many times a day, sometimes 5 or 6 times an hour if you can work it into it. Miracles are seen in light. Let me keep my eyes open because of this. So that's the lesson for today in Pam Grout's book, A Course in Miracles Experiment. Her chapter 91 is titled Gloriously Crazy. She quotes Roald Dahl as saying, "A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men." Pam writes, April Fool's Day was right up there on my list of favorite holidays. What a blast putting sugar in the salt shaker and adding food coloring to the milk, running into my parents' bedroom screaming, "Becky, my sister, just fell down the stairs and broke her leg. April Fools!" Course in Miracles, Lesson 91. Miracles are seen in light. It isn't fooling when it tells me miracles are happening all around me, all the time. Course in Miracles insists the only reason I don't see them is because I am engaged instead in such foolish practices as worry, as feeling unworthy, or as trying to be cool. These silly ideas are what the Course calls darkness. Darkness is nothing but a ridiculous April Fool's joke. They give the ego a great excuse to discourage me from trying to feel my strength, to dissuade me from seeing all the ongoing miracles in my life. So basically, the joke's on me. Miracles are within easy reach once I quit pretending that I'm weak, once I quit obscuring the light. Today's idea, like the dozens of pranks I played as a kid, needs frequent repeating. Because once I get it, that weakness is but an April Fool's folly, miracles will leap like lords into my awareness. So, the miracles are everywhere. You are a miracle. Life as it unfolds in, through, as, and around you is a miracle. And your inability to see it is driven by your focusing on silly thoughts, April Fool's pranks, the conditioning of the culture that speaks otherwise to truth. So that's our lesson for today, and we have plenty of time to have a conversation. We have 47 minutes left, 563-999-3581. And if you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. What's on your mind? What would serve you? How could we use the remaining time today to be of service to you in the learning of or the application of these tools? I'm also ready to do a little bit more reading from a Glennon Doyle book, Untamed, that to my mind goes right along with what I was reading yesterday or the day before. And it really to my mind is very important, because we have a lot of, I keep trying to get people to understand that even though Dr. Michael Rice talks for an hour, or I talk for an hour, or Jeannie talks for an hour, the words are not important. And the person speaking them is not important. We want everyone listening to question everything we say for themselves, to learn to turn inside to their own source of wisdom. And, I keep trying to bring that up, and here's a segment from the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, where she talks about the absolute need for us to question what we do in our culture, how we talk about this. This is the segment from her book Untamed titled Ears. She says, "My daughters are different. I raised Tish while I was still trying to be a good parent. But then I got tired, and by the time Amma came around and exited the birth canal, I just handed her an iPad and wished the child Godspeed on her journey. One way to describe her is independent. Another is on her own. This parenting approach, or retreat, has served her well. She wears what she wants, she says what she wants, and mostly does what she wants. She has created herself, and she is a glorious invention with which she is well pleased. Recently we were sitting around the kitchen table, and Tish mentioned her need to train more if she ever hoped to be great at soccer. And we asked Amma if she felt the same way. And Amma took a bite of her pizza and said, "Nah, I'm already great." Amma is 12. Maybe 11, actually. I have 3 children, and their ages change every single year. All I know is that they are in the phase that comes after crawling but before college, somewhere in that sweet spot. Years ago, I was in the thick of deciding whether I wanted to save or end my marriage, and the girls began begging to get their ears pierced. I was grateful for the distraction, so I said yes. I took them to the mall, and when we arrived at the piercing kiosk, Amma ran ahead of me, leaped into the piercing chair, and announced to the surprised 20-something piercer, "Let's do this." When I finally caught up, the piercer turned to me and said, "Are you her mother?" I said, "I'm trying to be." She said, "Okay, do you want me to pierce her ears one at a time or both at the same time?" Amma said, "Let's go." And then she squinted her eyes and gritted her teeth and flexed every one of her muscles, like a tiny Hulk. As they pierced her, I saw a couple of tears that she wiped away immediately. I looked at Amma and thought, she's so awesome. She is also 6 years away from a felony. She jumped down from the chair, buzzing with adrenaline. The women working at the kiosk laughed and said, "Wow, she is so brave." Tish stood next to me, taking all of it in. She motioned for me to lean down closer, and she whispered, "Actually, Mom, I changed my mind. I don't want to get my ears pierced today." "Are you sure?" I asked. She looked over at Amma's earlobes, swollen grape tomatoes. Amma said, "Come on, Tish, you only live once." Tish said, "Why does everyone say that when they're about to do something dangerous? How about you only live once, so don't get dead early?" Then she looked back at me and said, "I'm sure." The piercer turned to Tish and said, "Your turn, honey." I waited for Tish to speak. She said, "No, thank you. I'm not ready today." The piercer said, "Oh, come on. You can do it. Be brave. Look how brave your little sister was." Tish looked at me, and I squeezed her hand as we walked away. She felt a little ashamed, and I felt a lot annoyed. I don't think brave means what we've been saying it means. We tell our children that brave means feeling afraid and doing it anyway. But is this the definition we want them to carry as they grow older? When she was 17, and when she is 17 and headed out in a car driven by her teenage buddy, and she's telling me she's going to the movies, but actually she's going to that kegger down the street. Imagine me calling after her, "Bye, baby. Be brave tonight." What I mean by that is if you're in a scary situation and you feel afraid to do what your friends are encouraging you to do, I want you to ignore that fear and just go do it anyway. Just plow right through that gut instinct of yours. No, that is not the understanding of brave I want my children to have. I do not want my children to become people who abandon themselves to please the crowd. Brave does not mean living from the inside out. I read that wrong. Brave does not mean feeling afraid and doing it anyway. Brave means living from the inside out. Brave means in every uncertain moment, turning inward, feeling for the knowing, and speaking it out loud. Since the knowing is specific, personal, and ever-changing, so is brave. Whether you are brave or not cannot be judged by people on the outside. Sometimes being brave requires letting the crowd think you're a coward. Sometimes being brave means letting everyone down but yourself. Amma's brave is different, and it's often loud and let's go for it. Tish's brave is often quiet and let's wait for it. They're both brave girls because each of them is true to herself. They're not divided between what they feel and know on the inside and what they say and do on the outside. Their selves are integrated. They have integrity. Tish showed tremendous bravery that day because keeping her integrity required her to resist the pressure of the crowd. She trusted her own voice more than she trusted the voices of others. Brave is not asking the crowd what is brave. Brave is deciding for oneself. On the way home from the mall, I said, Tish, I know that lady made you feel unbrave today. People have different ideas about what's brave. You did the brave thing, because the brave thing is doing what your knowing tells you to do. You don't ask others what's brave. You feel and know what's brave. What you know to do might be the opposite of what others are telling you to do. It takes special bravery to honor yourself when the crowd is pressuring you not to. It's easier just to give in. You didn't give in to the crowd today. You stood strong in what you felt and knew. To me, that's the greatest bravery. That's true confidence, which means loyalty to self. That's what you move through the world with, Tish. Confidence. Regardless of what others are calling brave at the moment, you stay loyal to yourself. If you keep living with confidence, the rest of your life will unfold exactly as it's meant to. It won't always be comfortable. Some will recognize you're brave and others won't. Some will understand and like you and others won't. But the way others respond to your confidence is not your business. Your business is to stay loyal to you. That way you will always know that those who do like and love you are really your people. You'll never be forced to hide or act in order to keep people if you don't hide or act to get them. To be brave is to forsake all others to be true to yourself. That is the vow of a confident girl. And that's what, at its core, all of this work is about, helping each and every one of us figure out what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like when we turn to that guidance within us, which might be dramatically different from the guidance our friends and family who are right next to us in the very same situation are getting. And my being right for me doesn't make anybody else wrong. And them being right for them doesn't make me wrong. The truth is, the bravery is, the correctness is to be found internally through that deep knowing. And as we were reading yesterday, there's that idea about sinking into the quiet solitude of your inner self and asking, and then learning what that very subtle nudge is like. And once you learn to recognize that nudge, find a way to follow it. Find a way to trust that inner knowing and follow the nudge with a behavior that puts you in alignment with that inner knowing. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. What's on your mind? What is your inner knowing telling you? I had somebody in my office earlier today she's dealing with a soon-to-be 21-year-old and a 16-year-old daughter. And we were having a conversation about this very thing, how much of a struggle it has been for these very young people to give themselves permission to look inside, to be true to themselves, because there is so much pressure to be like everybody else. And as we try to call out on a regular basis in this work, everything about this work is to empower individual people with the tools they need to get into alignment with their true purpose and their true inner wisdom And I like talking about that two-prong approach, which is I'm going to remind myself of the miracle of life expressing as me, and I'm going to take full responsibility for using a tool whenever my mind tries to convince me that I am damaged or broken or wrong. Because the essence of us as people is that we're fine just the way we are. And we get convinced by our culture and our family that we aren't enough and that we need to be changed in this way or that way in order to be enough or to be accepted or to be worthy or to be wholly enough. And the essence of any deep teaching that I've ever been drawn to points to the opposite, that you're created whole and complete just the way you are. There's nothing of value that can be taken from you, and nothing of value can be added unto you. It comes at us from a variety of different sources, including the Gospel of Thomas, where one of the teachings says, if you bring out what is within you will heal you, will save you. If you don't bring out what is within you will destroy you. And that teaching, to my eye and ear, is the same as saying you're whole and complete just the way you are, and there's nothing of value that can be added unto you and nothing of value that can be taken from you. So what is that inner voice inside of you teaching? How can you learn to recognize when that inner voice is guiding you and where it's in conflict with what the culture would teach you or show you? Well, the simple answer in this work is I recognize that any negative emotional state is best used by me as an alarm system to tell me that my processing, my thoughts, my conclusions, my interpretation of the experience of life in this moment is off the mark. And if I use it that way, then I use it as an indication that I should pick up a tool. And fortunately for us in this work, the tools are available absolutely free. They include the Reality Management Worksheet. They include the Mind Goal Management Sheet. They include the targeted journaling that Michael calls the MindShifter. And every one of these is designed to help me get clear about what's in my consciousness, see more accurately how I'm using that consciousness to either arrive at the spiritual faculty of true perception, to see the truth of my life and the miracle expressing in, through, as, and around me, or I'm using traumas and conditioning from the culture and the family in the past to hide that truth from myself. And the more I get clear about that, the easier it is to see the truth and the better my life becomes. At least that's been my experience. So, we have 29 minutes left. We have a few people on the call, no one in the chat room. Plenty of time to take a comment or a question or a suggestion. 563-999-3581. Tonight is a Thursday. Today is a Thursday, so tonight there will be a support group. And you can find out about that at mindshiftersacademy.org. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Dr. Tim. I love this lesson, but it's confusing to me because I've always connected the idea of a miracle to a sense of joy and enlightenment and so forth. And I think the miracle is probably something quite different and accessible and ordinary. But can you just talk about that?
Well, at one place in the Course in Miracles, it says, a miracle is nothing more than the shifting of a perception from fear to love, or shifting of the filter from fear to love.
That's good.
So another way to look at it is to say that life, as it's unfolding, is absolutely perfect, to take that perspective that Gangaji gives us and that Byron Katie gives us, and that when we're judging what's unfolding as bad or wrong or inadequate, then we do a whole bunch of things right there in that moment when we judge. At one point in the Way of Mastery, it says, if you could see what happens when you judge, you would never judge again. It says, literally, the very cells in your body stop functioning properly. And if you could be aware of this, you would never judge again.
Who said that, Dr. Tim? Where did that come from?
Right out of the Way of Mastery. And,
okay.
And it's almost identical to what Bruce Lipton describes when looking at human cells through an electron microscope.
Wow.
And so, it comes to us from a variety of different places. But the judgment in the moment creates disruption and tension in our energy system, whether you want to call it a physical energy system or not. And judging something means rejecting it. And when I'm rejecting something, I can't see it accurately, I can't be with it, and I can't work with it. So the judging something as being bad or wrong and this shouldn't be puts me in a position where I can't add loving energy to it, I can't be an agent of change within that system, etc. So it does a tremendous disruption in my energy system, and it prevents me from having a constructive impact by bringing the light of awareness, this light of this loving energy, which will reveal the miracles to anybody who's willing to see them.
Would you say that a miracle is a holy instant, or what is the connection between those two?
Well, if you would let yourself be aware that every instant is a holy instant. So if you let yourself be aware of the holy instant, you will see nothing but miracles.
Whoa. Yeah. I put this huge judgment on what miracle means and judge it right out of the realm of possibility for myself. And you're saying some different things.
Life is a miracle, that the miracle is the norm, and our inability to perceive it is because we keep focusing on other things. We keep judging what is and saying this is not a miracle and this is not good and this shouldn't be happening, and that's what keeps us from seeing the truth of life, which is that life itself is a miracle, expressing in, through, as, and around each and every one of us every moment.
And that seems to be impossible to take in. I feel as if I really, really took that in totally, I would probably drop my body altogether. I'd die.
Okay. Right, but that's just a thought process you have.
It sure is.
That's just a fearful thought process you're engaged in. That's got nothing to do with actuality.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. If I'm taught from the beginning of time in my life, do you ever read the book The Lemon Tree?
No.
Isn't it funny how the human brain works? Isn't it funny how the human brain works? I haven't thought about that book or talked about it since a little while after I led the club group that I was the moderator for it, and they read that book, and I didn't know about it until that club. But anyway, I mean, the essence of it is that here are these people who were raised as Palestinians, and they were raised believing one reality, and then there were these people that were raised as Israelis, and they were raised with another reality, and each of them believed what they'd been conditioned to believe and taught by their culture. But the actuality was dramatically different than either one of them had been taught. And there's all kinds of stories like this that abound. You know, that when you take actual human beings, regardless of their skin color or national origin or the religion they were trained in or whatever, and you take them out of that context and put them in a situation where they get to relate to each other as actual human beings, they're just shocked to find that there's another human being here.
Yeah.
Right? But you've been conditioned to believe that miracles are so scarce and so powerful and so et cetera that, oh my God, if you could see a miracle everywhere, you would just drop your body. But that's what you've been conditioned to believe. What happened with Jesus and Mary? They ascended.
Yeah.
It's about the training. It's about the conditioning. Look at the culture. I saw an advertisement the other day for this movie, Resurrection or whatever, or Ascension or whatever the heck it is. I had to chuckle because, you know, it's really good marketing, right? They're going to release it right before Easter, and they're going to get people to sign up for this subscription to this HBO Plus or Disney Plus or whatever the one it is. And it's more and more conditioning us to believe about the specialness of one person or another, about the rarity of miracles, etc. It's in our culture, and we've been conditioned to believe it. But that's all it is. That's the only reason you're having that thought, that if you could see a miracle everywhere, your body would just fall off and you would just ascend. There's no actuality to that. It's just a fearful thought pattern that's been well rehearsed in your mind.
No kidding. Well, Dr. Tim, I'm following this wonderfully. This is great. And I'm going to ask a very rudimentary, I almost think I know the answer question, but I want to hear you say it. Can you give a few examples of miracles?
The breath moving in your body right now.
Okay.
The fact that there are, depending upon which scientists you look at, 10 trillion or 100 trillion cells in your body right now, all working in concert without you having to be consciously aware of any of it. A flower. A squirrel.
So you are saying that if we see in the light, we will simply see, or in the inverse, if we really are seeing, we're seeing in the light.
Well, if you have true vision, the way this Course in Miracles is talking about it, if you're not just doing image creation, which is what most of us do, you look at that video with Anil Seth describing how every one of us hallucinates our reality. But this work, this Course in Miracles book, is talking about what Michael Rice would call the spiritual faculty of true perception. And in his lectures, he talks about how if you could change the frequency with which the antenna of your eye receives information, you would see through what seems to be solid. Whoa. Einstein said, there is no such thing as matter. Matter is just energy. It's energy that has been so lowered in its vibration to be perceptible to the senses. But everything is energy and everything is in motion.
Whoa.
And the antenna, which is the eye, is tuned to a certain rate of vibration. Well, guess what? We've got science that proves this to us, right? What kind of science can prove that to us? What about X-rays? What about MRIs? What about pets and squids and CAT scans? All of these things are showing us that what we think of as solid, my hand, is not solid in an ultimate sense, in an actual sense. Radio waves pass through my hand, X-rays pass through my hand. All kinds of energies flow through our bodies, the acupuncture meridians and the chakra energy system, and all kinds of things flow between us and through us, that unless we develop capacity for awareness of them, they're not known to us because our senses don't vibrate at those frequencies. But it doesn't mean those energies don't exist. Just because my eyes can't see infrared or ultraviolet doesn't mean there is no such thing. Just because my ears can't pick up the lower bass tones that are rumbling that an elephant or a whale puts out there doesn't mean they're not, that the elephants and the whales are not sending out those signals, receiving them and using them as a form of communication. So the idea is we are trained in this very, very pedantic, mundane, myopic vision of ourselves and the world. Think about what Einstein said when he said, we were given a precious gift and a faithful servant. The precious gift is the intuitive mind. The faithful servant is the conscious logical mind. Way of Mastery talks about the same thing and says, your conscious logical mind was meant to be a servant. Pardon the language, but a very stupid servant. What you can conceive with your conscious logical mind is fractions of fractions of fractions of a percentage of what actually is happening in every moment. And yet, you want me to say some words to help you comprehend a miracle. Just see how silly it is, right? So what I'm talking about right now is ways for you to loosen what your conscious logical mind wants to wrap itself around.
Right.
And to give you some reason to just soften and breathe and step into the next experience of the miracle of life expressing as you. Give me an example of a miracle. What was the first one I gave you? Your breath moving through your body.
Okay.
You have no idea how that works. You have no idea how that works. So that's a miracle because you can't scientifically explain it. So from that this false but very rigid belief that you're holding right now, the definition would have to be something like, if there's no way to explain it in terms of science, it must be a miracle. Well, then everything about your life is a miracle based on that definition. So what I would call you to is what all of this work is calling us to. If you look at every tool that Michael Rice puts out there, they're about letting go and asking to be shown. It's about canceling what your conscious logical mind is trying to tell you. It's about learning to read the energies, the very subtle but powerful energies of perception and knowing and insight and intuition, and developing those so you're not looking outside for answers. And that, if you could ever do that, if somebody as, strongly intelligent and rigid in her thinking as Susan Bingham could do that, that would be a miracle.
It would.
But that's what I tell people a lot. I talk about the 10 bottom line observations, and I say the one that most people overlook is the fifth one. And the fifth observation is, my greatest strengths will at times be my greatest weaknesses. My greatest assets at times my greatest liabilities. And sometimes I get people in my office that are, 2, 3, 4, 10 times smarter than I am by an IQ test. And I say to them, number 5 observation on that list is the most important one for them, because they are so intellectually bright. They are so used to relying on their intellect to come up with these solutions. And yet, their anger, their fear, their worry, their anxiety, their depression, their guilt, their shame is not driven by the conscious logical. It's
right.
wrapped around them in this other realm, in this energetic realm, in this emotional realm. And so the answer is not to be found in the conscious logical realm. So they keep going to their greatest strength, which is their conscious logical mind, and they get stuck. They engage 24 hours a day in what David Bohm calls sustained incoherence. Right? What's incoherence? Incoherence means something that doesn't make sense. This is not coherent. It doesn't hold together. It doesn't make sense. And then I sustain doing something that's not coherent. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't produce good results. Well, that's my relying on my intellect to try and come up with a really good definition for myself for a miracle. That is a trap.
Well, it's mostly in defense of myself. It's mostly so that I can get rid of this very subduing or limiting belief that a miracle, if I were really seeing with my real eyes, I would be in a state of ecstasy. I don't want that as a requirement anymore. I want to, whatever it is, I would just like to see the miracle and have it be seeing it and whatever else it happens to be. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, you want things to be different than they are. And the way things are is an absolute miracle. And as long as I want things to be different than they are, I block myself from seeing the miracle of life in the moment.
Boy, we could get into a real fight about this, because you're inviting us never to look at our lives again. I mean, if we have an upset, hooray, that's a miracle. That's the way it is. I don't think you're saying that, but I had a dream once when I was trying to get up off of something, and I couldn't, because in the dream I was half awake, and my actual body was far heavier than the body that I would be maneuvering in a dream. So I felt like a piece of lead. And when I put my effort into raising what turned out to be a physical body, I woke up with the weight of it. And I've thought about that so much that, in the Eastern tradition, they talk about subtle bodies. Our subtle body is in there, is maybe beyond us, but in us. They say we have a subtle body. I don't know whether that's Eastern religions or what that is, or where that came from now that we're talking about it. But I don't know why I'm telling you this, Dr. Tim. I forgot my connection.
Well, this whole talk about, subtle body and all that other stuff, to me, is just more of the mind work.
Mm-hmm. You mean it's the obstacle of a mind that tries to figure things out?
Exactly. And it's trying to create words that can encompass or hold or crunch down into, something the 9-bit mind can comprehend, that which is infinite and ever expanding. It's a trap. So,
and you're running a whole radio show doing that, Dr. Tim.
No, what I'm doing the radio show about is trying to offer people the opportunity to call and say, hey, let me do a worksheet on this. Let me actually, step into the use of a tool, or let me get enough of the mind energy going that says there's reason to use a tool. There might be a value behind picking up a tool. And breaking the cycle of adherence to or trusting or believing in all the words and thoughts that I've been conditioned to believe. Help me look at and explore the way adherence to these thoughts and conditionings is what is creating the pain that I say I want to get rid of. And my intention with this work is to support people in using and or learning about tools that can usher them into a different experience. So completely free from the conditioned thought and the reliance on the belief and the energies of trauma which flood up in me. If they're in me, they're going to get triggered into, resonant action by the interpretations I place on life events. And when they flood up in me, if I try to think my way out of it, I create more of what I say I want to get rid of. And if I catch the fact that I don't like how I'm feeling and step into the breath work and the application of a tool, I can transcend anything Dr. Tim or Dr. Rice or Jeannie could tell me in a heartbeat.
That was really good. I was pulling your leg, but you gave a good answer.
Well, it's fascinating because it is, there is this paradox about how do we communicate if we don't use our language, and yet as long as we stay in the use of language, we're shackled by it. So that's why we're only using the language to point toward an experience. If you think about it, and you think about all the times that people have asked me, what is wrong with you? Why would you donate 5 hours a day or 5 hours a week to this internet show for 10 years? Why would you donate 3 hours 2 nights a week for the last 7 years and 3 hours 1 night a week for 16, almost 17 years? What is wrong with you? And the answer to that is the experience that I get that goes beyond the words. It's the value to me of practicing the awareness that's behind the ability to perceive the miracles that you're asking about. So I'll say that again. It's practicing the awareness that's behind my ability to perceive the miracles that you're asking about. If I do not practice the conscious focus of my awareness, it gets driven by the culture and the training and the language. So what we're calling ourselves to in this work is to practice awareness, practice observation, practice questioning, practice use of tools to break out of the belief systems and the language restrictions. So I've had a couple times in the last week, because I like to use whatever comes up. And so I had this situation where I had a text message come in at the end of half an hour left in the Thursday support group, and there's just some digital images show up on the phone, and instantly I felt myself flood with this frustration, irritation, anger. And I've used it several times with patients, and some of them brand new to this work, trying to get them to understand, look, my anger, my irritation, any emotion that I experience is generated inside me, and it's driven by the interpretation that I place on my life events. I said, so here is this, here's some history I can give you that says this is a text message about something that was mine that somebody basically, stole from me 16 years ago. And now they're saying, if you want this, you better come pick it up within a month, or I'm getting rid of it. And so when I frame it that way, it seems like, oh my God, of course you'd be enraged about that, and because that's the framing I put on it. But if I put another interpretation on it, and I say, oh, here is this person who no longer is, she's not going to keep this piece of furniture that has sentimental, emotional value to me. And rather than just throw it away or sell it, she's offering me the right of first refusal. Well, how kind. If I put that interpretation on it, there's no anger.
And that's the miracle in this situation.
Say more.
That's your reorganizing your thoughts to say, oh, that's a kind thing for her to do. She's offering me this piece of furniture before she junks it. She's going to the trouble, even though she might not want to be in touch with me. She's offering this. That's very nice.
But what I would say is that's not the miracle. That's just one of the many ways I could throw an interpretation on this. I could throw an interpretation on it that leaves me feeling irritated or grateful or annoyed or distracted or confused or emotionally hurt. But the key is to understand that it's only getting generated by the interpretation I'm choosing. Or Michael would say, I decide upon based on what gets stirred up in me. And the interpretation I choose and pour my mind energy into resonates or triggers. The outside event doesn't trigger this. The outside event is neutral. What triggers my upset is the interpretation I choose to place on the outside event. The miracle is just life itself unfolding. So,
but it seems, I know you have to...
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Light seems as if your more loving interpretation involves seeing in the light. And that's where I'm hitching it up to a miracle. But that may be just nothing. I mean, we can't talk about it now. But it seems like light was coming into the scene.
I'm just trying to get you to expand it to be much, much, much broader than that.
Okay. I hear you.
That's a tiny little miracle that I could choose, a positive interpretation. But the whole flow of life is the miracle. And it goes beyond anything my conscious logical mind can wrap itself around. So when I have anything less than that joy, aliveness, compassion, gratitude, then I pick up a tool. So again, tremendous gratitude for your call, comments, and questions. I will mute you. Thank you for calling today, and get ready for the transition.
Thanks. Yeah.
We come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome to you.